Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Clean Water Wednesday series and today's presentation, Using Save Our Streams to Make a Local Difference. We are really excited to be able to offer these webinars to our monitors, our friends, and clean water community as a chance to learn about clean water issues and stay connected during these strange times. I'm Rebecca Shore, the Mid-Atlantic Save Our Streams Coordinator. I have a few housekeeping items to review before I turn things over to Danielle, our first presenter. First of all, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the Isaac Walton League YouTube channel soon. Keep an eye out at our website, iwla.org, for information on the recordings and upcoming webinars in our series. You'll also get a follow-up email to this webinar, which has the link to the recording right in it. Second, if you have any questions during the presentation, you can type them and send it from the GoToWebinar questions box. We're going to save all of the questions for the end of the presentations, so feel free to send those in as they come up, but we'll save Q&A for the very end of the webinar. The webinar should run for about an hour total, including time for question and answer. And if we run a little bit over and you're not able to stay on the line, don't worry, the webinar is recorded and you'll be able to catch all the question and answer session afterwards. All right, our first presenter is Danielle DeHart. She is the environmental specialist with the City of Roanoke Stormwater Utility. Her main job involves education and outreach with the stormwater utility, working with volunteers for water quality monitoring. She is also a certified Virginia Save Our Streams monitor and a certified volunteer trainer. All right, with that, I'm going to turn things over to Danielle.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. Hello, everyone. So yes, I'm going to talk today about how and why the city utilizes citizen science data to understand our water quality. So here's a picture of the City of Roanoke, and there's our Roanoke River. So some background: in the City of Roanoke, we are mandated by federal and state agencies to control and eliminate stormwater pollution under the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, or MS4 permit, which is always a mouthful. And so the stormwater utility was created to address these water quality issues in the city, because like many rivers across the country, the health of the Roanoke River is impaired from pollution. In fact, the EPA and DEQ have identified the Roanoke River and 11 of its 13 tributaries as currently impaired. Of course, this is an urban environment where everyday activities such as walking the dog, fertilizing the lawn, driving cars, etc., anything you do outside can contribute to this pollution. These pollutants wash into the storm drain system and flow untreated into the nearest creek and then eventually into the Roanoke River. So we always like to say, if it's on our streets, it's in our streams. The resulting pollution reduces our community's availability to use our waterways for things such as swimming, fishing, and drinking, and it adversely impacts wildlife populations. These problems create negative impacts on our community by suppressing the local economy, increasing the cost of using our waters as a natural resource, etc., because nobody really wants to swim in dirty water or be a part of that. So it is our goal to work together with citizens to improve the city's waterways so that it can be, in fact, a community asset for many years to come. So it is essentially our goal to then delist our streams. So how are we working together? How do we engage citizens? Through citizen science, which is so fun. I love it. So we use the Virginia Save Our Streams Rocky Bottom method, and then this program helps the city to be in compliance with our MS4 permit, where certain minimum control measurements must be met, including MCM1, which is the public education and outreach, and MCM2 with public participation. So the stormwater utility, along with local nonprofits, which we work with Clean Valley Council and the Upper Roanoke River Roundtable, have developed this local citizen science water quality monitoring program, which we just call it the Roanoke River Project, to kind of implement these and get a baseline of the data to see the health of our waterways. So it allows community members to engage in the Roanoke River and its tributaries, as well as become part of the solution in achieving clean and healthy streams. So that is essentially the why we decided to develop this program. So here's kind of our little journey story of how we got started. So in 2016, the City of Roanoke partnered with Clean Valley Council and the Upper Roanoke River Roundtable to begin this partnership, because it does require funding and different partners to get this program going. And then since then, in 2017, we did our first full year of training, which was spring and fall. And how we have our program set up, we do an info session every around February to recruit volunteers, so that way they know about the program, and then do training twice a year. So then kind of continuing on, we continue to train and certify volunteers. And with our program too, once our volunteers are certified, we assign them to a monitoring site in or around the city. So that way they don't have to worry about finding their own monitoring site. We do that for them. And then in 2019, we added an additional trainer to the program, which is me. And I was lucky enough to be certified by Sharon Stinnett, which maybe many of you know, which is a great asset to have with this program. She has like a wealth of knowledge and has definitely given great leadership with this program moving forward. And so today, currently we have 45 certified stream volunteers and 31 active monitoring sites. And also to the future, we're kind of looking at like high school or colleges to get involved, because we're gathering all this data and hopefully they can do some fun research projects. So if anybody's listening and wants to contribute, we'd love to have you. So here is just an example of the data sets that we've collected. So this is a snapshot of our dashboard that you can find on the Clean Valley Council website. And there's like the link to the address at the bottom. So anyone can go access this data. It's open to the public. So like I said, we're gathering the baseline data to understand our watersheds. And this program also has dual benefits of strengthening our partnerships for environmental protection and providing this large useful data set that then our city staff can use to track and implement best management practices for like different water quality projects. And recently we've actually done sampling of kind of like a before and after. We're starting to do internal stream restoration projects. So it's really good to see the before and after to gauge what our quality is like. So here is just an up close look at our monitoring map. So you can see all the little points around the city. So we're trying to get all the tributaries. As you can see, some of them aren't collecting data at this time, but of course, as we get more volunteers, we'll get more stream site assignments. And that can kind of just tell you like exactly like a snapshot of our watershed. So each of the color is based on the stream health score, and then the watershed itself is shaded of the average, because as you can see, there might be multiple sites. So that's a really good visual just to see the health of our waterways. And here is a 2019 kind of species breakdown. So what we did here is got all the volunteer data, and then we did a total count and then broke it off with percentages of the different tolerant levels. And then from there, we did the stream health score for the averages per stream. So this is just a great way to utilize the data that we get from our volunteers. And we're always looking at different ways to display the data. And so in conclusion, it is critical that the city utilizes citizen programs like this to better understand the stream dynamics and more effectively target water quality projects. The Roanoke River Project provides a valuable baseline of data to evaluate the city's water quality over time. So once this data is collected as part of the program and indicates that the body of water has recovered to fully support the aquatic life, then it can be kind of like delisted from that EPA list of being impaired. And that is our ultimate goal, is to delist our streams so that way they're cleaner and healthier for everyone and everyone's safety to use it. But citizen science is more than just collecting data. We always like to think it provides a way to engage in all parts of society and gaining a deeper understanding of our environment, and builds an informed population that then can go out and do kind of like the environmental advocacy work. And also it's a lot of fun to play in the creeks, and you meet a variety of people in the community. So this is definitely a wonderful program, and we're glad we can use local partners and Virginia SOS streams to collect the water quality data. That's really qualitative like data that we can use. And so yeah, this program has been success to based on the number of volunteers that we get, and then their retention each time. So we just have a great volunteers always getting the data that we need. And so that concludes my presentation. So I guess we have questions at the end.
Yeah, great. So definitely, if you have any particular questions about specifically Danielle's project, keep sending them in. We've had a few come in, but definitely keep sending those in, and we'll have some nice time for discussion at the end. And something that I want to let folks know about is Virginia, you'll hear Virginia Save Our Streams referenced specifically. So Virginia Save Our Streams is a project of the League. That's our state-specific program in Virginia. So we have both our national Save Our Streams program, and then we have a specific Virginia Save Our Streams program. So this is a really strong program that's been running for quite a while in Virginia that's specific to that region. So you'll hear that referenced by both Danielle and Stacey. All right, thank you, Danielle. That was a great overview of the work you guys have been doing down in Roanoke. And so now I'm going to hand things over to Stacey. So Stacey Heflin is the conservation specialist for the Henrico Soil and Water Conservation District, which is just outside of Richmond, Virginia. She oversees urban conservation programs and is the HAWKS, the Henrico Area Water Quality Samplers Program Coordinator. She is also a certified Virginia Save Our Streams monitor and is also a Virginia Save Our Streams volunteer trainer. And with that, I'll hand it over to Stacey.
Thanks, Rebecca. Can you hear me?
Yep, you sound good.
All right, great. So like you said, I'm Stacey Heflin, the conservation specialist for the Henricopolis Soil and Water Conservation District, and I'm here to talk to you about the HAWKS program. So a little bit of background. I grew up on Tuckahoe Creek, which flows through Henrico County near Short Pump along the Goochland border into the James River. So I've always enjoyed being around the creek, watching beavers, geese, foxes, and all the wildlife that comes through. And I still am able to enjoy kayaking and fishing along Tuckahoe Creek. And if you don't know what a soil and water district is, there are 47 in the state of Virginia, and each of them serve a locality, educating folks on non-point sources of pollution. And the Henricopolis district focuses on Henrico County, and there are 3 of us, staff members. We're run by a board of directors that oversee our conservation programs. I am on the far left in the green, and I run urban conservation programs. So we have rain barrels, the water quality monitoring program that I oversee, and then we have an urban conservation assistance program, also known as VCAP, which is available to homeowners to get them to install urban conservation practices and get a little bit of financial help. Next to me is the district manager, Charlie Lively, and he oversees the agriculture program working with producers in the county. Herb Dunford is our old chairman, and Lenny Durham on the far right is the education specialist. A little bit of background about the HAWKS team. It was created in 2016 through a TMDL grant at Echo Lake. That's located at a popular park in Henrico. And we were contacted about concern about the fish health at the lake. So we started monitoring the inflow and the outflow. Didn't really have any results that showed significant impairments. And then thanks to a citizen monitoring grant through the Department of Environmental Quality, we're able to expand the program. So we gained more volunteers and we're able to monitor more sites. And our volunteers that started with us, they were really interested in monitoring at Jordan's Branch, where they would go each year to watch a HAWKS family. So it's kind of cool that we started monitoring at this specific stream, Jordan's Branch, and our name kind of matched up, not plans. So first, we started monitoring in the Chickahominy watershed, and now we monitor all over Henrico. And there's sediment and bacteria impairments in Henrico tributaries. Just want to thank our partners with Henrico County Public Works who provided the maps. Currently, we have 20 volunteers that monitor Henrico County, and they test for basic water quality conditions such as turbidity, bacteria, temperature, and nutrients. We have some new sites that we're planning to monitor once everything calms down and the new volunteers can finish their site trainings. We are planning to monitor 4 macroinvertebrate sites. Right now, we are just focusing on 1 macroinvertebrate site, so we're trying to keep going with this program and this spring has been a little bit different, but we're gonna keep it going in the fall. And if you are familiar with Henrico County, the western and middle section is very urbanized and it continues to develop. And the eastern section is more rural. So definitely see a lot of urban issues going on. With that being said, our water quality data shows us typical urban runoff issues due to impervious surfaces and pet waste and erosion and high nutrient use. A lot of streams are enjoyed by pets and people, which makes it really important to know what kind of pollution is going on and understand how to reduce the sources of pollution. We've been thankfully working with partners to help discover and identify pollution sources. And of course, our volunteers are out there determining the data. And the middle top picture is a picture of an algae bloom that our volunteers discovered. We have worked with the Virginia Department of Health on that. And then the picture on the top right, that is a perfect example of an urban stream. This stream flows along a bunch of impervious surfaces, and it's usually ankle deep. So there was a rain an hour later, water went from ankle deep to about chest height, and just the runoff coming down from the streets, going into the closest storm drain, going into the stream. It just took all of the pollen that was on the streets last year into the stream. So that kind of leads to pictures below showing a lot of erosion that happens, and trash and motor oil are taken straight to the stream. So we began testing for macroinvertebrates in spring 2018, and Emily Ballowis and Samantha Briggs with Virginia Streams and Isaac Watton League were able to lead the training. And thanks to Rebecca Shore, just got certified to become a trainer this past fall. Looking forward to training folks on that hopefully soon in the next year. I wanted to break this up with a quick little video showing one of our monitoring sessions using the muddy bottom method, so hopefully it'll work.
Hi, I'm James Beckley, Director with Henricopolis Stormwater Conservation District. We're out here today on Jordan's Branch near Libby Mill, collecting benthic macroinvertebrates, where we go out and we sample for the aquatic organisms that live in our streams. They are a great indicator of water quality because they live in the stream for a majority of their life and are sensitive to pollutants. And today we found a good indicator of benthic conditions. We found stoneflies and mayflies. However, we do find some poor water quality indicators like worms and leeches. And Jordan's Branch is a highly urbanized stream. It has a lot of stress due to impervious surfaces with rain that runs off and flooding the stream, as well as runoff from fertilizers, oil from cars, and other forms of pollutants that can stress our macroinvertebrate community, which is an important source of the food chain for fish and other aquatic organisms that live in our waterways. If you're interested to becoming a volunteer in Henrico County, the Henricopolis Water Conservation District has a volunteer program called HAWKS, the Henrico Area Water Quality Samplers. Please visit our website, and you can sign up to learn more and to become a HAWKS volunteer.
That was James Beckley, our director, and he also volunteers. And you can find more videos at our YouTube page. So since the beginning of monitoring this stream, it's had very high levels of E. coli bacteria, and our volunteers have been working hard trying to figure out what's going on, and they've been taking additional samples and sampling more frequently for bacteria. The stream is also located along a popular walkway with a library close by. There's a bunch of business buildings and residential buildings, and we found that the macroinvertebrate conditions have been partially acceptable and unacceptable. We're still getting some information on it, trying to figure out the baseline study, and some unusual things about it is we found goldfish in it last year, which are invasive, and since there's a library with a pond just upstream, we're thinking that somebody dumped these goldfish and they ended up in the stream. It's been pretty interesting. Every time we go there, when we have stream cleanups there, you can tell that it's polluted with the data results we get, and because we'll find that there's a lot of construction material in the water, electrical cords, tons and tons of plastic bags from nearby grocery stores. And last spring, we carried out a stream cleanup. And this is in the middle of trying to figure out why the bacteria levels were so high. And we noticed there's a strong sewage smell upstream of where we usually sample. So we were able to contact the Henrico County departments, and they were able to further investigate. They found that the source was coming from a pet sitting facility upstream that was improperly disposing of their dog waste. So thankfully, they were able to stop that pollution source. And another time at this stream, our volunteers noticed a very strong odor of diesel fuel. And so they contacted the Department of Environmental Quality right away, and the department was able to reduce the spill from impacting the stream even more. So thankfully, working with all these partners, we've been able to try to stop pollution and also educate folks about what's going on. Our volunteers are great to tell passerbys about what's going on in the stream. There's a lot of dog walkers that walk there. I think our volunteers have kind of educated them about the importance of picking up from their dogs. So we've developed great relationships with our county departments, and we can count on them when we notice any strange findings for their further investigation. They're so great to get out there at any stream site, and if we have any unusual findings, and try to investigate. At another site, different volunteers noticed an increase in sedimentation while construction was occurring nearby, and the department was able to get out there quickly and try to assess if something wrong was going on. Another site, we came across some really unusual high phosphate levels, and each time the county is contacted, they quickly investigate the area and update us with any findings. Since Jordan's branch runs along the walkway where business employees, library patrons, and residents frequently walk, a residential property business, Guminick, has been very supportive in the Hawks program and has helped recruit their volunteers to participate in cleanups. We hope to expand on that relationship in the future. The Henrico Library near the site has helped promote our monitoring program and cleanups, and we are working together to develop educational events. So they have space available for us to hold our trainings, and we are working together on a Know Your Watershed event. Supposed to happen in the next month, but we're looking at doing that in the next couple months, hopefully. And then also we've worked with Boy Scouts and a community college. They've helped promote the events and try to help educate students, the Boy Scouts. So we're really thankful for our supporters and hope to continue developing these partnerships to help our program grow. We're planning to monitor new sites this spring, and we're hopefully going to pick those up in the fall and start seeing some more data on those. And then we're also hoping to work near neighborhood streams and hopefully get residents involved or educated to know what's going on in their local streams. Also, we're We're hopeful to work with more college students and library patrons at other streams. And we're hoping to carry out some certification trainings and just really expand on this monitoring program in Henrico. And it'd be nice to tackle the stream that's been really interesting, Jordan's Branch, and see if we can get more people involved to help restore it, carry out more stream cleanup since it's just very polluted. Hopefully just get more folks to understand they don't have to use a plastic bag. They can clean up after their pet and doing other things at home, like getting their soil tested before putting a bunch of fertilizers down, because excess fertilizers we found get in the stream pretty easily. Just want to give a big thank you to our volunteers, especially 2-star volunteers, a mother and son team that have been working with us since the beginning, and they've dedicated over 80 hours trying to improve Jordan's Branch. Our team was recognized by NRCS and won the Group Earth Team Award for the state of Virginia last year. And James Beckley, our Henricopolis director, has dedicated a lot of time and energy to help expand the team. And he's helped develop affordable pieces of equipment to keep the program inexpensive, such as this 5-gallon Lowe's bucket that we turn into a sieve bucket with a hole in the bottom and a fine mesh net that's usually $150. And then he's also helped develop this table, making it a little bit higher so that we're a little bit more comfortable just by using PVC pipes. And it's been fun with this program, learning how to run it and having these new and expensive ways to keep it going. Our volunteer was showing us the best way to dry off the shower curtain is to run around flying like a hawk after monitoring. So thank you to our volunteers and everyone involved helping us grow and helping to promote water quality.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacey. It's really cool to see both of your programs are kind of in their early stages and starting to grow. So this is a great time for anyone on the call who themselves is interested in sort of starting a program or figuring out some lessons learned, especially working with partners. And that's something that we've gotten quite a few questions about. So I'll be asking those in a little bit. So the first thing I actually wanted to ask, and Stacey, I'll just ask you so you can maybe help folks clarify. So there's a couple of different things that both you and the Roanoke group test for. And so you mentioned bacteria, macroinvertebrates. So what are the different kinds of tests that you're doing? And especially with the macroinvertebrates, what do they tell you about water quality?
Can you please say that again?
Yeah, sorry, my audio went out a little. So you mentioned that you test for bacteria and that you also test for macroinvertebrates. So can you just explain or say what are kind of the different things that your group tests for? And especially with the macroinvertebrates, what are you testing? Like, what are you measuring with the macros and what do they tell you about water quality?
Okay, so with the high bacteria levels we found that the macroinvertebrates we found, like the damselflies, found a ton of scuds, aquatic worms, and leeches in this specific stream. They're pollutant tolerant, so there's definitely a correlation there. We test with the Coliscan for E. coli bacteria, and we also test for phosphate, nitrite, turbidity, and temperature. So when I did the training in other streams, like out west in the mountains, we found that there's been a variety of different macroinvertebrates. In this one stream between Richmond and Henrico, definitely has been only a few types of macroinvertebrates that can lived through a lot of pollution.
Awesome. Yeah, and Danielle, can you just run through what are the different things that you test for in Roanoke?
Yeah, so with our citizen science program, we do the benthic macroinvertebrates. We test for DO, pH, temperature, and turbidity. But then internal for the stormwater department, we go out monthly to do a bacteria sampling for test for E. coli. And then with that, we're also getting like conductivity, and then it also has like a DO meter and pH and temperature as well. So we're just gathering a lot of baseline data to see how they correlate with each watershed, to see like what are the different stressors and things like that. So those are some of the things that we're looking in Roanoke.
Awesome. And so Stacey talked about some of the different partnerships that she has through the Soil Water Conservation District. And some folks were asking about, especially with stormwater utilities, what are some of the partnerships, Danielle, that you might have with citizen groups? You mentioned some nonprofits, but are there other, departments that you're working with locally in Roanoke, and sort of how do you develop those partnerships? How have they worked, and who have you worked with?
Let's see. So we're really just with the nonprofits to implement the program. So like Clean Valley Council and then the Upper Roanoke River Roundtable. And then from those kind of board members and other members with those nonprofits have actually been citizen science monitors, which is a lot of fun to see people like in, the same different groups and things. And then we've been doing kind of neighborhood presentations to different groups and things like that to get more people involved. Just a variety of volunteers kind of coming into the program. So kind of how you implement those is just kind of through communication and kind of like the outreach, which is hard to do now. But like I said, we do kind of like info sessions every February to get people involved and going from there. So kind of partnerships though, we've just had the nonprofits, so they've been a big help too with like grants and funding like that to get new equipment or whatever else we need, additional training resources, etc. But now looking into more colleges getting involved, so it's been kind of interesting. It's kind of been stopped now because of things, but looking to see how the local colleges can get involved in like adopt a stream section and then use it into their learning. So it's kind of a learning curve now, so nothing really to report at this time, but just kind of having open communications and then like working with those people that have those other circles and then keep building from there. So we've been lucky to have the nonprofits that do the push for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. And that actually segues right into another question that folks had, which is about recruiting volunteers. So, how do you, and this is for both of you, how do you find volunteers? What are your strategies for doing outreach to make sure, you hit different groups of people? Are you looking for, do you partner with organizations first to recruit volunteers? Do you put up flyers? Do you send out emails? What's the strategy to try and recruit volunteers for each of your programs?
I have worked or presented at with the Virginia Master Naturalist, and they've been great helping to promote our programs. And we had a Boy Scout in our basic water quality monitoring team. He had us talk to his group, so trying to get them involved. And then J. Sarge Community College has been great about having us come to their science night. We've recruited a lot of volunteers there, and then flyers, social media, that's getting interest. But I think the big thing is word of mouth. So current volunteers will tell their friends to join our team and come volunteer with us. That's been really great.
Oh yeah, so we definitely have done the whole plug, like how Stacey was saying, of like the free promotions. So just seeing what's in your community that you can utilize for free. I'm lucky enough to be in the stormwater utility, kind of like in the government sector, that with our and we have a communications office, so they do a lot of push to our citizens, so then they can do it in like kind of the Roanoke e-news. So anytime we're having a recruitment for volunteers, that gets pushed that way, flyers, social media, etc. Utilize Nextdoor. I don't know how many other communities have that, but that's a good thing to also push out information. and so forth. And then, yeah, participating in presentations and things like that. And then, like I had mentioned, like, yeah, we do an info session, so that way people know what they're getting into before they start the training to see if they're interested. And that does a big push, because even though we might get 20 people interested in that meeting and then 11 want to become volunteers, like, that's still a success because it's getting the word out.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely something. If other folks on the call have, strategies that they've used, we definitely, at the League, as you mentioned, utilize a lot of those groups that might have overlapping interests, like the Master Gardeners, Master Naturalists, groups like that, and yeah, the Scouts. There's quite a few groups that sort of, once you tap into them, that word of mouth really spreads, and it's a great way to, get folks outside and engage with their environment, as well as gathering really important data. And we did have a couple questions. I know, Danielle, you mentioned, so the data that you collect is publicly available on your website. And so, Stacey, when you guys collect data, how do you report it out to the community? Do you have it living on a website? How do you share that data with the community?
Our volunteers post our data on the Chesapeake Monitoring Cooperative site, and that is publicly available, and DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, is also able to access that.
Yeah, and there's a couple spots that folks can access data. So Stacey mentioned the Chesapeake Monitoring Cooperative. That's a collaboration between citizen science groups throughout the Chesapeake watershed, where they can host their data. We also, at the League, all of our folks who collect data, the data lives on our Clean Water Hub. So you can also go and visit that and view the data. It's a big emphasis that we want this data to be publicly available to anyone who lives in a community, so they can know what's going on with their water. And I was wondering, with both of you, have your volunteers themselves used the data, even micro locally? Like, if you had a volunteer who collects data and then they talk to their neighbors about what they've found, they work with their small community within the program itself?
I can answer this first. So I would say yes. We actually had a volunteer that was looking for pictures, and we shared information and used our data and did a presentation at like a conference, and was so really excited. And then we do a thank you bash each year for our volunteers to keep get together, because we do have like a lot of volunteers, and we give out little certificates and stuff to thank you, to like tell them thank you and things like that. And he did the presentation again that night to our volunteers, which was great. And then for an upcoming Roanoke River Watershed Conference that we'll be hosting, he's going to present about the citizen science data at that conference too. So really proud of our volunteers to like get out there and then spread the message.
And our volunteers have asked about downloading the data. I think a few of them have, and they might have talked about it, like students at school, but I haven't really seen anything where it's been presented on yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we've found that a lot of our volunteers, so across the state and the country, especially if they belong to these smaller groups, might share it with their homeowners association or with smaller groups like that. So the nice thing about this data is that it can be used at a really micro scale, at a little bit of larger scale, at a citywide scale, at state and national. So there's all kinds of applications for this data for folks to really take advantage of. So if someone wanted to become a volunteer and eventually become a certified monitor, can each of you or one of you speak to what the process is? So what's sort of the timeline for someone if they want to become a volunteer, and how much time do they have to dedicate to it?
I can go first this time. So if they're interested in the basic water quality monitoring, we have a training every March. If someone is interested in the middle of the year, we start hosting little mini trainings throughout the year, like in June and September. And if they want to do the basic water quality monitoring, it's about an hour each month. And we require them to get recertified each year, which can be as simple as taking a test. They need to report data to us and have like a little 6-month period where they need to report data and keep in contact with us. And after 6 months, we know that they're vested with us. And then if they're interested in monitoring for macroinvertebrates, we are getting folks to join us at a session first and then have a certifier training. So we had one, we had a bunch of stuff scheduled this spring, but hopefully we can pick things back up in the fall. And then I think for that, the requirement is just join us whenever they can for a monitoring session. We're planning to have about 8 macroinvertebrate monitoring sessions a year, 4 in the spring, 4 in the fall. And then we have stream cleanups whenever we can, and that's about 2 hours.
So in Roanoke, how we've done it, we partner with the local nonprofits. So on the Clean Valley Council website, there is a form that you can fill out if you're interested in becoming a stream monitor. And then from there, we gather the information and then notify them when the next training is or an info session. So we host trainings twice a year, spring and fall. So kind of from March to June, and then again from like September to November. So that's where our volunteers can plug in. So how our training is set up, we do kind of the orientation classroom setting, and then they have 3 stream trainings and then a certification. And then after they become a certified monitor, then we assign them to a monitoring site, and we go out with them the first time. So that way they're acquainted to their site. And then that's when we teach them things of like the pH and DO and turbidity and things like that. And then like different things to make sure they're comfortable with their site, or if they have any questions for the first time. And then after that, they're free to go out for their next sampling season time. And then, yeah, they submit the data to us at the end of each sampling season. And then we put it onto our database that you kind of saw the snapshot of. So that's essentially kind of like our training and recruitment part for our program.
That's great. And Stacey, you referenced something that was actually the next question I had on here, which was you mentioned stream cleanups. And I was wondering, so once your folks have monitored, and Danielle, you mentioned that the Stormwater is doing some restoration projects, what are some of the projects that you might be doing after monitoring or using that monitoring data? So are volunteers getting involved with stream cleanups or with restoration work? What are some activities that folks can do maybe aside from or in addition to monitoring?
So the monitors that we have that go out once a month, they can join us for stream cleanups. Not all of them do. Some of them just stick straight to monitoring. And then with the stream cleanups, anyone is welcome to join. So they don't have to be a usual volunteer with us. They can come and clean up the stream. And we've had a lot of interest with those. We actually had to start limiting folks who could participate in a cleanup that would just get way out of hand when we had these small streams and a lot of people and not enough trash to pick up, which sounds like a good thing, of course. We are hopeful to do some kind of restoration projects. Right now, we're still kind of collecting baseline study of streams and alerting officials when we notice anything interesting happen. And some streams don't have a lot of significant data, but this past year we had a stream we've been monitoring for over a year, and all of a sudden the bacteria was consistently high. And I went out to try to get different samples, different areas, trying to figure out if there may be a leak, sewer line leak. But what we found was that it was most likely just runoff from a recent rain. So we still are kind of watching that site to make sure that there aren't any kind of leaks or anything going on. But in the future, if we can get enough data on a site to have a restoration, I think that would be great. Like the Jordan's Branch site, I'd love to see if there's a way to partner with a group and maybe plant more trees or figure out a way to reduce all the water and runoff going to that area. And then with macroinvertebrates, just would like to start monitoring more streams and getting data on those. I think that's.
That's great. And Danielle, do you have a similar thing with volunteers? Like, can they do stream cleanups and whatnot? Or is that something that is sort of down the line? Or do you have a similar sort of setup?
Well, for in Roanoke, I would say a lot of our volunteers are already in those kind of networks of doing kind of cleanups or doing some sort of kind of environmental work outside of being a volunteer, which is really interesting. Like maybe it's their career progression or whatnot. But yeah, I have seen where, interesting enough, like a lot of the board members on the Upper Roanoke River Roundtable are also volunteer citizen scientists. So it's a lot of fun to see like the board members being active in the community. And then to that, like we kind of, with Clean Valley Council, they're the ones that really push the cleanups each year, like twice a year. So kind of encouraging our volunteers too, when they're around their site. I know a lot of our volunteers have kind of said they pick up trash like at their monitoring site already when they go there, which is great that they're kind of like vested, like that's their monitoring site, and then want to see improvements there.
Yeah, that's great. It's definitely, we've noticed that folks, once they get plugged into the clean water world, it just spreads very quickly and they get involved with all kinds of different groups. All right, so we're reaching the end of our questions here. So if you have any last burning questions, please feel free to send those in. One of the things that folks were asking about, especially because you both mentioned bacteria monitoring and that you have these impaired streams, is how do you ensure volunteer safety and monitoring safety, especially if you're going out and you discover, you know, there's really high levels of E. coli or something like that. What do you teach your volunteers, and what are some safety measures that you might employ to make sure folks are monitoring safely in urban streams?
We give out sanitizer, gloves. We tell folks, make sure that you wash up after monitoring. We also tell folks if you smell a strong odor that something might be dead or it's just something strange going on at the site, not to monitor and to contact a project coordinator or me. And just tell folks to be very cautious when they're at the site. Don't go out when the weather is inclement or there's suspicious activity going on. Of course, don't go out when the water is frozen. And when they're plating samples at home, make sure they put like newspaper down where they're going to be plating, clean up the area really well. We also provide alcohol to get rid of bacteria. The plates, they put it in a bag and shake it up and dispose of it properly. And people just, they're usually pretty good about staying safe and using the procedures correctly.
Yeah, very similar with our program. We have kind of like a checklist for like safety things. So of course you don't go out when it's too high or too swift. And since it is an urban environment, like check your riffle that you're sampling before you enter to make sure that there's no sharp objects. And then we supply with hand sanitizer and really say like, look at the weather, make sure it hasn't been a heavy rainstorm and then going out, because then that's when the bacteria levels are higher. So of course you never want to sample when it's turbid. Anyway, but still kind of keeping that in the forefront to maybe wait a couple days depending on the year's storm. So really kind of pushing that safety because we can't be out there all the time when the volunteers go out. So they have to kind of put that for themselves to kind of know what is safe.
Oh yeah, we also have, if anyone is like near a road, we have safety vests that we get volunteers to wear.
That's great. That's a good point too. Yeah, you have to be mindful of sort of where you are, both in a stream and within a community itself. And it is a thing, of course, you know, in light of all the new COVID-19 suggestions. For a lot of this, if you're monitoring an urban stream, it's one of the big things we already have been encouraging, where being sure to wash your hands afterwards. Don't, touch your eyes or touch your mouth if you've been messing around out in the field. So luckily, a lot of the safety stuff for our monitors, at least, should be a little more second nature. All right, well, that sort of wraps up the questions that we've had so far. I want to thank you both so much for taking the time to talk about your two programs. It's really exciting to see local governments and, the Stormwater Utility Conservation District using really utilizing citizen science as a way to make change and also engage communities. Virginia is one of the gold standard states in terms of utilizing citizen science data. So the state level Department of Environmental Quality is really welcoming for citizen science data. They really utilize it and support these different groups. So it's really great to see that these two programs are growing and flourishing. And if any folks on the call are local to those two areas or are interested in figuring out a way to start this in their own community, definitely reach out to us. You can reach out to Danielle or Stacey, and I'm sure we'd all be happy to help you launch this kind of program in your community. So yeah, I want to thank both Stacey and Danielle for your time today. And otherwise, definitely tune in next week for our next Clean Water webinar, which will be about healthy soil and healthy water, presented by our Agriculture Program Director, Dwayne Havorka. All right, with that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you both again and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you.